Hi everyone, this is Tuplex. Welcome back. Now that we've got some bots integrated into our base, I would like to start showing you a few of the things that we can do with them. Before we do that though, just to let you know, I did set up a copper mine over here as we discussed earlier. I should probably put a radar out there so I can see what's going on. I want to start preparing to go and tap into this stone patch over here. So the other thing I did is I just kind of walked my way over there and cleared out any of the biter bases that were around, so that we don't have to do it later. But essentially what I'm planning to do is just to go north with this set of rails here and then cut east somewhere around here so I can grab that stone, and then I'll also have another iron patch that I can access if the need arises. Okay, since our radars have been running a while, we have a much greater view of the map now, and I'm seeing that we have some pretty good defensive options here. Since we have a narrow bit of land here, we can wall in, put a wall here that'll protect us from any attacks coming from the south. We can also set up a wall over here to block off any biters coming in from this way. Oh, that's interesting. Looks like a very rectangular bit of cliff. And then up here there might even be an opportunity to set up a short wall. So the nice thing about having these big bodies of water around is that it does give us the ability to set up some fairly easy defenses. If you have a map that doesn't have large bodies of water, I mean, the good thing about that is that you don't have large bodies of water that you have to work around or landfill. Landfilling large bodies of water really is not very practical because it requires huge quantities of stone to make as much landfill as you need. When you start filling in little lakes with landfill, you'll quickly realize that it just takes a huge amount of landfill to feed in or to fill in even fairly small amounts of water, because 20 stone only fills in one tile, right? So like this would probably take like 40 stone to fill in that little dot there. So you can imagine, filling this in would probably take several thousand pieces of landfill. So, but anyway, what was I getting at? Yeah, so having these large bodies of water here, this will allow us to wall off the south and western approaches to our base with fairly short walls and not a lot of turrets, and it'll be very easy to defend from those locations. And because of this water here, we know that really most of the attacks that are going to come in are going to be coming from either the northeast or possibly the northwest, but mostly from the northeast. So that makes it easier to build base defenses. Okay. Since last time we set up construction bots, and I built some more roboports and distributed them around the base. So if we go to map view, what you see here, this option here will show you logistic networks. So this will show where you have roboport coverage, and then you can see the orange and the green areas that correspond to the logistic range and the construction bot range. So I do have a few things that are out of range, like my refinery up here is not covered by bots yet. We can fix that later. That's not a problem. But for the most part, I can get to most of the base, at least with my construction bots, and most of the base with my logistics bots as well. Speaking of logistics bots, I have built some. So if we look at our statistics now, I have 250 logistics bots and 251 construction bots. Now, is that enough? I don't know. We'll see. I think it's a good start. And depending on how heavily we use them and in the way we design our base, we can easily add more if we need to. I've got a ton of robot frames here just waiting to go. But thus far, I've just added 250 of each. So we kind of already covered construction bots. And so what I'd like to do today is to start to show you some of the things that we can do with construction bots and logistics bots. But before we get started, I want to start making red belt components. Okay. So let's make some of those red chests. So I'll put one there, and one there. Actually, I'm going to grab some more steel chests. There we go. And I'm going to dump the wooden chest and the iron chest. Now I'm just shift clicking on those, and when you shift click, it'll automatically put it into your trash slot. So if you want to dump it, that's an easy way to do it. And then what will happen is the logistics bots will come, they'll grab it out of the trash slots in my inventory, and they'll put it into storage. Okay, so we now have a quick and easy way to get rid of things. Okay, so like we saw when we set up the mall, each of these requires the previous tier component. All right, so all I'm going to do is just put another inserter there. And then this one needs, this one needs gears. Okay. Now that we have logistics set up, we have the ability to set up a different type of limit system. But I'll get into that in a moment. And then here we have the belts. Now, one thing I like to do with the belts, since I generally use more belts than I do undergrounds and splitters, I like to put the inserter that grabs the gears upstream of the inserter that grabs the gears for the other parts. And that way I can make sure that my gears are getting prioritized to this machine before it's going to get used for that machine. Once you start making lots of red and blue belts, you'll find that your limiting factor is usually going to be the gears. Okay, and then this also needs green circuits, so we can just put a long inserter right there. No, you know what? Better yet, let's just do that. Okay, so now we're crafting all these. So now that we have access to the logistics network via the bots, we have another way that we can limit our production of certain items. Now, up until now, we've just been putting limits on the chests. Okay, and that's good to start with, but let's look at our yellow belts as an example. I've got 1,000 belts in this chest. Now, I also have 200 yellow belts in this chest. So just because of that, the quantity of yellow belts that I have in inventory has increased by 200 just because I picked up some yellow belts from somewhere in the base before and they went into storage, and those are not being taken into account here. And when we start upgrading yellow belts to red, you'll see that we're gonna start accumulating a lot of yellow belts in our inventory. But then this machine is still going to be trying to build up 1,000 yellow belts when we don't really need it. So there's a better way that we can set the limits. So what we're going to do is click on the inserter and then click on this thing that says Logistic Network and click on Connect. And now we can enable or disable this inserter based on the contents of the logistics network. So here we can say only to work when we have less than 1,000 belts in the entire network. All right, and then we can remove the limit from this chest, and you can see it's still not running, and that's because we have 1,100 yellow belts in the network. Okay, so this won't make more yellow belts until the total quantity of belts in the network drops below 1,000. And that'll count these belts as well as any belts that are in storage or in any other logistics chest anywhere in the logistics network. See here you can see the gears starting to run out. Sometimes when I build a mall, I actually make 3 rows of gear machines, but I wanted to make this playthrough a little bit simple, so that's why I didn't do that in this case. Okay, so let's do the same thing over here. And what we can do to simplify the setup is shift left click or shift right click to copy the settings and then paste them there. And then that way all we have to do is just go in, change the item. Let's make that 100. And that just makes the setup a little bit quicker. And we'll make that 100. Now the other thing that we're going to be able to do later, there's another bit of research that we need for the bot network, and that is, where is it? Logistics system. We can't research it yet because we don't have the science packs we need. But this will also give us requester chests and buffer chests. And when we have those, we can actually pull, again with the yellow belt example, we could pull yellow belts out of storage and bring them over here so that they're available to be used to turn into red belts if we need them to. Because right now we can only make red belts with the yellow belts that go into this chest. And if, for example, we had over 1,000 belts in the storage chest over here, this machine would not make any yellow belts, and then the red belt machine would not be able to make any red belts. So this type of system is really only complete once we have requester chests and buffer chests that we can use to control where the inventory is getting stored so that we can put it, where it needs to be. But until then, we can leave it like this. All right. So I'm gonna copy these inserter settings over here to the reds. Okay, and then once you set up your limits using the logistics network, you can remove the limitations from the chests. Okay, so let's make this one make red undergrounds. Why didn't that copy? There we go. Just change that to red and change that to red. And I'm going to leave it at 1,000 because I think we'll use a lot of red belts. And actually, I'm going to reduce I'll leave it at 1,000. I was going to say, since we're going to start to use more red belts as we go forward, that maybe we don't need to make as many yellows, but I'll leave it as 1,000 for now. Okay, and then later on we'll be able to add the blue belts over here as well with the same type of flow. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So, everywhere else I've got these things where I'm just limiting by controlling how much can go into the chest. But really, once you reach this stage, you should go through and update all your production limits using the logistic network setting on the inserter rather than using chest limits. So that way you take advantage, you just don't overproduce things. You take advantage of what you have in storage as well as what you have in these particular chests. Okay, so I'm not going to bore you by doing that on every single one of these right now, but that's something that we can do later on when you have time. Okay, so that's, and then since we now have red belts available to us in the logistic network, our construction bots have access to those belts. And we can start to upgrade our smelting lines to steel furnaces with red belts. Okay, and I also put a requester chest on the steel furnaces. And I will take the time to set this up. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to set it to 48. I'm going to set the limit to 48 because that's how many we need for a single smelting line. And then I can start to upgrade these lines to use steel furnaces, and I won't accumulate more furnaces in inventory than I need just to upgrade one at a time. And that way we don't waste materials overproducing things. All right, now I can see that I'm going to need more iron feeding in. Those belts are going to have to be upgraded. These belts are going to have to be upgraded. But let me show you. So I brought in the copper train, and then I had to balance my copper belt and get it fed over here. And you can see this is a total disaster that I've got over here. It's a real mess. I tried to put in a balancer to get over these sections of rails. I actually had to use red underground belts because the yellows wouldn't reach far enough to jump over the tracks. So this is a result of suboptimal planning. Okay. If I had been more active in Factorio over the last few months, I probably would have had the foresight to leave myself a lot more room to run these belts out of the train stations. I would have left a lot more room over here so that once the belts get out this way, I actually have space to route them. As it stands now, getting the belts out was a bit of an issue because of trying to jump over these rails. If I had left more space between each station, then I could just jump across a single track instead of having to jump across a junction like this. That would have made it better. I also would have left myself more space here. So these are the kinds of issues that a lot of new players are constantly running into. And if you don't have a sense of humor, you can get very frustrated by this kind of thing. And I know that there are probably some players who have reached a point in their game, reached this sort of mid-game point where the frustration of this type of issue that they paint themselves in a corner, they run into issues like this. And I'm sure that there are a lot of players that at this point they just give up and either start a new base, or maybe they just say, I don't want to play Factorio anymore. So if that sounds like the situation that you're in, all I can say is just stick with it. Try to work around your problems like this. And if you can't or you don't want to, then by all means, quit the game, start a new one, start a new map, and build a new base with what you've learned from the first one. I can tell you that I played probably at least 10 different maps before I ever launched my first rocket in Factorio, because I would play for a few hours, I'd make some progress, and then I would run into some frustrating condition that I knew was going to be a major pain in the butt to work around. And so rather than do that, I'd just be like, well, I'm just going to start a new game and do it better the next time. And every time you build a base, it almost invariably ends up better than the last one that you did. Except in my case here, because I haven't played Factorio in a while, this base is worse than the last one that I made. But it's still, it's good enough. Okay. Striving for perfection can also generate a lot of frustration, because perfection is an ideal. You want to strive for perfection, or at least, well, I don't want to get too philosophical here, but let's just say that, as I'm sure you all know, if you try to make things perfect, you're setting yourself up for a lot of frustration. So, like I said, have a sense of humor. Have fun with your mistakes. Try to fix them, because fixing mistakes can teach you a lot as well. And if you can't fix them, then just ditch your base and make a new one. There's nobody is gonna stop you in the grocery store and say, hey, did you finish that base yet? Right? We're just doing this for fun. So if you don't like the way that your base is going, then delete it and make a new one. It's fine. All right. Sorry for that little off-topic thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move my belt balancer over here so that I don't have to worry about it trying to split it and jump it over the coal belts. I think that's right. Oh, and that was the other... Pardon me. My other little planning issue was running this coal line for the trains here, and then there's not quite enough room here for me to do an underground and then another underground to jump over 4 belts. So anyway, yeah, it's a little messy, but it's still going to work. And you know what? There's a lot of players who like messy spaghetti builds as well. I kind of do also. Like if you ever watch the speedrunners, look up on YouTube. Look for a guy called Nephrums, and another one called Anti-Elites. Those two are at this point they're kind of going back and forth with setting the world record for speed run in Factorio. Now, it's probably not fair to call what they're doing spaghetti. They're not doing a highly structured main bus type of build. But their builds are absolutely very precise. But and they're rehearsed, they're essentially doing the same build over and over and over again, like down to the placement of every single building on exactly the same tile. And that's how they get to the point where they can do it so fast and efficiently. But to the casual observer, if you look at the base, it kind of looks like spaghetti. They have belts going everywhere. They're like smelting copper here. They're smelting some copper over here. Some of the belts go this way. Some of the belts go that way. It can look a little chaotic, to a novice to the game. And I really enjoy watching them build those kind of bases too, because I will say that the thing about building a main bus design, the problem that I have is that since I started building bases this way, it's very hard for me to build anything different now. I've kind of lost some of my ability to think outside the box. And that I see that as kind of a negative. Once you start building bases this way, it becomes difficult to envision any other way to make it. So I like watching those guys, and I try to imitate some of the stuff that they do. Like over here where I'm smelting some plates locally instead of belting plates up there, and just little things like that. I learn a lot by watching those guys play. Okay, anyway, back to the bots. So let's start upgrading our smelting lines using bots. So what we're going to do is we are going to make this thing down here called the upgrade planner. So let's click on that. I'll drop it in my inventory. And then let's right click it. So what the upgrade planner lets you do is you select items that you want to replace with something else. It doesn't have to be an upgrade, really. It's just any kind of, it's like a replace function in Excel or something like that. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to replace stone furnaces with steel furnaces. Okay. I want to replace yellow belts with red belts. I want to replace yellow undergrounds with red undergrounds. And I want to replace yellow splitters with red splitters. So by using this upgrade planner, and we can give it a name. So let's call this iron furnace upgrade. Okay. And now that's in our inventory. So what I can do now is I can take this and then I can select, let's make sure that we get our undergrounds and splitters as part of our selection here. I'm going to select all of this. And then you'll see that they're all highlighted with yellow circles. That means they're pending to be upgraded. And then our construction bots will jump into action. And they're just going to start replacing all of those components that we identified. Okay, so there we have steel furnaces. Now the stuff that they pick up is going to go into the storage chests. Okay, they're putting in red belts, splitters and so on, and boom, it's done. Almost. Missing one part. Okay, let's do the other one. When you're doing this, you don't have to upgrade the coal belt. The coal belt can remain yellow and it'll still feed enough coal to run your upgraded smelting line. Now, in order for this to really be an upgrade, we have to upgrade all of the belts feeding copper ore. Otherwise, we're just going to run out of ore halfway down the line. Okay, so we need to upgrade all of this as well. All the way back to the train. All the splitters. Everything. If you have even just one single yellow belt anywhere on this line, then your upgrade is worthless because that single yellow belt will slow down the whole thing. Now there is one exception. Okay, so we're going to upgrade all of that. These belts right here, no, there's not an exception. I'm going to upgrade those too. Never mind. Okay, so once all that is upgraded, then the input side will be making copper twice as fast. Okay, but then we also have to upgrade the belts on the output. Otherwise, our increased speed is just going to be packing these yellow belts twice as fast, but it doesn't make the yellow belts carry any more plate. So all of this has to be upgraded as well. And this is why I typically wait until I've got bots before I start doing this, because it could be very tedious if you have to do it manually. Here, even though I'm outputting onto a yellow belt, I do have to upgrade this splitter to red. Otherwise, it won't be able to pass any more than 15 plates per second to continue down the line here. So the splitter has to be upgraded even if these belts do not. Okay, so when you're upgrading belts, you just have to be careful to make sure that the entire chain is getting upgraded. Otherwise, you're not gonna be able to achieve the speed increase that you're after if you have even a single component somewhere that is not upgraded. Okay, so I'm just gonna go all the way down, and again, I'm not gonna upgrade any of the belts that are coming off of the bus. I'm only gonna upgrade the bus itself and all the splitters or anything that's on the bus itself, because my output belts, or the belts that I'm using to pull from the bus, are all as fast as I need them to be already. They don't need to be upgraded. Okay, so that's going to take a while. In the meantime, I can see a little counter here that shows how many entities are still pending to be replaced. Right, and now we can see, if we come up here, wow, look at all those yellow belts I'm collecting, right? So down here, I could end up with a problem before too long. Now, one thing you could do before we get to the fancy logistics chests, one thing you could do is put a storage chest here for yellow belts and set a filter so that chest can only hold yellow belts, because these chests do have filters on them. What I'm not sure about, though, is I don't know if doing that will make them preferentially put items into that chest first. I know it'll prevent them from putting any other item in that chest, but I don't think that it necessarily prevents the bots from putting that item in any other chest that's not filtered. right? So it might not necessarily get all the belts to go there. Okay. In the meantime, if we find that this chest runs out of belts, we can always just come over here and grab a bunch and stick them in there manually, just to keep things running until we can set it up properly later on. Okay, so that's how the upgrade planner works. And I think we could do the same thing for iron. Let's do that right now, as a matter of fact. Okay, so this time I'm just going to, yeah, I'll just select all of it at once. Okay, let's upgrade that. It would be good to upgrade these belts as well, I think. Let's see, how many... yeah, I've got about 45 miners over here. 2 yellow belts are probably enough, to be honest. I'm not going to bother upgrading these belts. I could upgrade these belts to red, but I'm not sure that I would get that much more ore out of it than just leaving them yellow. So we can leave them, I'll leave them yellow in the meantime, but what we can do is we can unload these belts, and then we can come over here and merge some of the belts from the train onto these to get the higher throughput of iron ore that we need. See, this is what happens when you upgrade the belts on the smelting line, but you don't upgrade the belts feeding the smelting line. You just end up with the line only running at partial speed. Okay, now to get these belts of iron out, I think I'm probably just going to have to bring them out on the left side and then come down and feed them over. But I'll do that at a later time. I'm not going to do that now. Okay, so what about logistics bots? Well, here I'll show you a very good thing that we can start doing with logistics bots right now. I already showed you the control click that will get stuff out of your inventory and into logistics storage. Okay, that's very useful to clear out stuff that you don't necessarily want to be carrying around, but you don't want to just destroy it or throw it away. It'll go into the logistics chest, and then later on you can request it. So let's talk about how you request things. That's what all these are for, personal logistics. So what you can do is come up here and put in an item that you use frequently, like these yellow transport belts, for example. And you can set minimum and maximum quantities that you want to have on your person. So let's say that I want to always be carrying, let's say I always just want to have 500 yellow belts on me. So I can set the minimum to 500. You can either type it in or use the slider here. Okay, and then anytime I have less than 500 belts on me, the bots will come and deliver more. Okay, so let me show you how that works. I'll just dump all my belts in there, and then the bots will immediately go and pick some up, and they will start bringing them to me until I have 500. Okay, the bots are still a little bit slow. This is why the speed upgrades are good. And you can see that the bots, they will pull from the storage chests first, and then if there is none of that item in the storage chest, then they will go to passive provider chests after that. And there's another type of chest called an active provider, which I'll show you guys later on. Okay, so now I have 500 belts. And then you can also set a maximum. Right now my maximum is infinite. So that means if I have more than 500, they're going to stay in my inventory. But if I want to prevent my inventory from getting overfilled, I could set the maximum quantity to 500 as well. And that way the bots will strive to make sure that I always have precisely 500. Okay, so if I put some down, they're going to replace what I just used. Now if I pick these up, they're going to pick up the excess and put them in storage for me. right? And I still have 500. Now let's say I set the maximum to 600. Okay, they'll replace what I used. But now in this case, when I pick up these belts again, they won't take any away until I have 600 or until I have more than 600. Okay, so I'm going to start filling this in. And what I usually do for a lot of these is I just set the min and max to be the same. Okay, let's make that 100, 100. Okay, so they should bring me some splitters. There we go. I will put in all the inserters that I use. Right. Sometimes I find it easier just to put all the items up here first and then set the quantities after. But you can do it however you want, of course. So let's make that 100. Yeah, we'll make that 100. And I'll set the maximum to 150. What the heck? 100, 100 on those. Stack inserters. Actually, let's go 150. Let's go 150, 200 on the fast inserters and the stack inserters. Okay, power poles. I'd like to have 100 of those at all times. Big power poles. I think I can probably get by with 50 in that case. Actually, let's leave the maximum at 100. Okay, lights. 50 is fine. You don't have to set maximums if you don't want to. In fact, I think a lot of players probably don't bother setting maximums. I'm going to save these slots for the other belt types, you know, for the reds and stuff. I don't think I need reds right now, but I'll leave those slots alone. So let's put in pipes. Right, I like to have a couple hundred straight pipes, and you know, let's say 100 undergrounds, assembly machines. I think it's good to have about 100 of those. Let's see. Ammunition. Okay, let's make sure that I always have 800 ammunition, but no more than 1,000. Now on the ammunition, I think it also counts what you have loaded in your weapon. So I think it's just going to give me 3 stacks here, and then the 1 stack that I already have inside my rifle. Yeah. Okay. I'd like to always have a single stack of grenades. Repair packs. I don't need 100. Let's say, I don't know, 50 repair packs should be more than enough. Between 50 and 100. Let's see, what else? I feel like that's good for now. Okay, and if I was going to go and build rail, actually I am going to go build rail pretty soon, so let's put in some rail components here. All right, let's have 1,000 rails since I'm going to go building. Let's get a couple stacks of each type of signal. Let's get a stack of train stops. Yeah. And I think that's a good start, right? So this is how you can use your logistics bots to top off your inventory, and then you don't have to keep coming up here and getting at the chests. Now, if you want to get rid of one, you just right-click it and it disappears. So that's useful for when you want to, you know, like if I wanted to get some chemical factories just for something I'm going to build right now, but I don't necessarily want to be carrying them around all the time. Yeah, I can just come down, request some chemical plants, wait for them to bring it to me, and then once I have it, I can just click it again to make it go away. And as far as I know, the number of slots that you can fill in this way is infinite. You can add more rows. I don't think there's any limit to it. Okay. Now there's also auto trash. You can hear Cooper in the background. Sounds like my wife just got home. So I'll do this quickly. You can set up certain things that you want to throw away. So let's say that I don't want to be carrying around copper cable. I can put in copper cable, and I can set the minimum to 0 and the maximum to 0. And then that way it'll automatically trash it. Okay. So you can do that. So you can set certain things to 0 so that they always get dumped from your inventory. So things like when you pick up stone and coal and bits of ore, you can put that in here to make sure that it gets dumped automatically. All right, well, that's going to do it for today. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.